He could walk along the crumbling walls with no purpose, no destination, and, looking behind him, no past. What use was it to be afraid of what might come if he didn't exist? The wind stirred, toying with his white-streaked hair as if it were trying to remind him of what he was missing. His right ear was gone, cut from his head by the Mongol gleaners who prowled the fields of dead after the horde was done with an enemy city. He, unlike his wife and children and so many others, had not been entirely dead. Some nights, when he was lost in the depths of a sweat-stained sleep, he would remember rising from the piled corpses, animated with the urge to fight back. But when he woke in the morning, the dream seemed to be only a mere figment of a tale he had overheard around a camping fire. Power had rested upon his shoulders once, and luxury. He had commanded a household of servants, had possessed retainers, and paid men who fought in his service. But it had never fit him well. As a boy, he'd been drawn to the training yard, had benefited from a position where men were expected to fight, and his father had hired the finest swords in the land to teach him. When he had grown to manhood, he had spent several years in the service of another boyar as a retainer, and a brief time as a sword for hire when his family believed him to be on a pilgrimage. It was on those journeys, in the years before he returned home to marry the bride picked for him, that he had first met the Shield Brethren, and eventually Ferenontus, the cold master of the northern citadel. His life had changed then, and but for the rift between the Church of the East and the Church of the West, he might not have come home. How different might life have been, had that been his fate. He heard gravel crunch behind him, and he stirred slightly, shaking off the layer of morbid thoughts that were accreting to him like layers of ice. He knew his visitor had stepped poorly solely to warn him of his approach, and he turned his head to indicate that he had heard the signal. He had been outside long enough that his eyes had grown accustomed to the tiny gleam of the distant lights, and he could make out enough of the silhouette of the person approaching to realize it was one of the Skaldis.
"Moping in the dark?"
she asked, and by her voice he knew it was Nika. Green-eyed Nika, who appeared oblivious to both the weather and the endless despair of life in Kiev.
"Aye,"
he said with a short laugh.
"'Tis better to do it up here, where the wind carries my sobs away from the citadel."
She stood next to him, less than a head shorter than he, and she seemed to be both listening and looking intently.
"It is both the best and worst night for a raid,"
she said after a moment or two of introspection.
"There are no Mongols left,"
Ilarion said.
"They've taken everything of value."
"Not everything,"
she countered.
"There are easier cities to plunder,"
he said.
"I wouldn't wait around either."
"Still,"
she cocked her head, listening intently again. Ilarion caught himself before he spoke, and did the same. He was at a deficit, having only one ear, and after listening for a few seconds, he had to admit he heard nothing but the wind as it sighed across the crumbling crenellations of the wall.
"Do you hear it?"
Nika asked. Ilarion shook his head. She glanced at him. He gestured at the hair obscuring his missing ear, and she nodded.
"It's only on nights like this, when the moon is hiding and the wind is from the north. It is—"
"What?"
Ilarion asked, his curiosity aroused. He briefly wondered if Nika was playing with him, spinning a nursemaid's tale as if he were a wide-eyed boy.
"After our sisters failed to return."
She paused, and Ilarion bowed his head in respectful memory of the party of Skaldis who had left Kiev with the Shield Brethren months ago.
"I kept vigil on many nights,"
she continued.
"I was waiting for some sign that they would be coming back, and it was during the near darkness of a new moon that I started to hear the sounds of their ghosts."
"Their ghosts?"
Nika made a noise with her mouth that was not unlike the low moan of the wind through the stones of the wall.